and their kids are going to be better off than they are. Eventually, they will get up where they're. Like Joel, well, Seth is too, but Joel, he's getting to be a real gentleman. Joel's going to go places.
Good.
He told me once he wanted to be president of the United States.
I think that's wonderful. He shared that with us too.
Yeah, I hope he makes it.
Really
Believe me,
appreciate
I think that's great. Of course.
So-
Go ahead.
So I was going to get back to Christmas. You had seven children. What was Christmas like?
What was different then?
Was
In
it
what
exciting
perspective?
time?
First of all, there was very little money around. You didn't have a lot of money.
Everybody knew that.
We used to sell eggs for 40 cents a dozen, fresh eggs right from the Frenchman used to buy it. Milk was 10 cents a quart. We used to sell it for. Of course, we used to have more milk than we could use, and we had more eggs than we could use. So we get a little money that way, and my father did work. He worked quite a bit at a time. I can't say too much for him anyway, for that way, but he did support, to a certain extent. He left home when I was 12 years old anyway, and left my mother with all the kids. But by that time, my sister was working, and one of my brothers was working. So we managed to hold our own. We never had to starve. But we didn't have abundance either, maybe abundance of butter and eggs and milk, but you didn't. I was forced to wear dungarees, overalls really, the ones that used to come up here. And we used to wear them to school, and I used to hate them things. Because everybody used to make fun of the other kids used to make fun of us. Today they wear them. I wouldn't wear a pair of dungarees. I hate them. Because I was forced to wear them when I was a kid.
Right.
Today, I see you got a pair on.
They're very relaxing.
They're comfortable, but I just don't like them.
Well, next time I'll put some slacks.
And another thing is, when they got faded, like they sell them in the store,
They sell them already faded.
we
and
wouldn't
ripped?
wear them.
Yeah.
We said, "Ma, they're all faded. They're no good." So that's one of the things, big changes. See, I had a girl working for me in the office in New York, and she got passed up for promotion twice. And she come to me and she says, "Pete," she said, "how come I've been here longer than so and so, and how come I don't get a promotion?" I told her, I said, "Look, if you put a dress on and dress like a secretary," I said, "you might get ahead." But I said, "You're always in dungarees." She said, "But the dungarees cost me $35. I said, "I don't care what they cost you. They're still dungarees, dressed like a woman." She quit 2 weeks later. But that was the truth.
Yeah.
I wasn't the one that made the decision alone.
Right.
I mean, I had a boss, and they tell me, But that's another difference, see? Them days we had to wear dungarees. They were, I think, 90 cents a pair. You could buy them for something.
Were they Levi Strauss?
Levi with the leather patch at the back with
right.
Levi printed right on the back of them.
There used to be a Levi Strauss manufacturer right in the village of Wappinger Falls. They used to make the jeans there. It's a parking lot now. But
And then we used to wear the ones that button up here, the straps.
yeah, we used to call them, in Italians, call them farmaioles. You look like the farmer. Farmaioles.
Well, a farmer type.
That's right.
We used to wear them too. When we were younger, that's what we used to wear. And then I got my first pair like that without the straps. Well, I was pretty happy, but even though I still didn't like, at first you don't mind, but then later on when you get older, you're wearing dungarees and everybody else is coming in dressed up, which a lot of the other kids were. I mean, a lot of the other kids. There was, in my graduation class, I think it was in the 8th grade, 5. I have a picture home of it yet. I think there was 5 boys and about 7 girls or 8 girls. That was consisted of the whole class, the 8th grade. So there wasn't that many kids in there. But the ones that were in there, they were a little better off than we were. They lived on the bottom of the hill, most of them.
Uh-oh.
We lived on the upper part of the hill.
Did you have radio in your house?
We didn't have a radio until I got the first radio. I got it off a friend of mine. It was a battery-operated radio. It used to squeal like the dickens. We got a car battery. My brother had a car, and he had a couple of batteries, and I got one of the batteries off of him. He used to charge it in the car, and then we used to take it and put it in the house with the radio. That was our radio.
When you said it used to run on a battery, I'm thinking of a little 9-volt or a little Energizer. Here we're talking about a car battery. It just blows my perspective.
No, we had, it was a big old car battery, 6-volt car battery that we had. And that was what we used for radio. And an antenna from here to Dave's shed. Too long.
And the family would get around, you and your mom? And
Well, Mom never bothered listening to it because she didn't understand the English anyway that much. She could talk a little English, but not. She used to start in English and then start talking Slovak. Even to the kids, they used to talk to her sometimes. Dave, I don't think Mark talked to her too much, but Dave did. Anyway, or did you meet Grandma?
Oh yeah.
Huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you met Grandma. Anyway, we didn't really, there wasn't that much on that. We had a neighbor, and they had, Smith was the name, and they had a radio, a big one. They were, the father worked in the Westchester Lighting Company at that time it was, and he was making pretty good bucks, so they were a little better off than we were.
so you said they had a big radio, so that means one of those floor models?
Yeah,
the wood
they
with
used to have the floor
models,
model that you,
with the big dial in the middle and
that you can listen to.
brought in all the stations?
And yeah, even overseas, if you can understand it. And when we used to be static and anyway, I used to listen to Long Ranger up there all the time. I used to go up and mind the kids sometimes, and we used to Cromwell Smith, who was a colonel, chicken colonel now. He was a little younger than me, and I used to take care of him and his sister. And I used to. The mother always had a headache. I don't know why. I thought she was always boozed up. But then I found out that there is such a thing as a migraine that can come and be real bad. So David had one of them or 2 of them at a time. Anyway, I used to go up there and mind him while she was in bed most of the time with a headache. And I used to listen to Lone Ranger and the All-American Boy, Wheaties, what was that, Jack Armstrong. I don't remember the other ones, but there was some programs I used to like. And the only time they listened to it is, there was a news reporter that back then, that they used to listen to all the time. That was a must. They used to get by the radio and listen to it. But we had no programs we didn't have.
So that was your entertainment.
Yeah.
And it was, when I've talked to my mom, because we've talked to them about radio and how they'd all huddle around and put their almost ears up to it because there was so much static at times and it was very hard to hear. But they had their favorite shows, The Shadow.
Yeah, that was another program. We used to listen to Shadow.
Yeah.
But, and of course, we didn't have an inside bathroom. We had an outside bathroom. Most of the people around here had an outside bathroom because there was no sewer line going through there. And if you were a little bit better off, you had a septic tank on the outside. But the houses that were built there earlier, like our house was there, my father had that house built, I think 1924 we moved in. In them days, there was no stores at all. It's just septic tanks. If you're lucky, you had a septic tank. Otherwise, you had an outhouse.
Right.
And most of the people there had outhouses, except later on when they come in, they start putting septic tanks in. And also, they start putting the sewer line in after. As a matter of fact, I think they had WPA putting in a sewer line in there. That was in the 30s. But up until that time, there was no, just like here, you know, it was all septic tanks. Even where I live we have a septic tank, a well, and well, that's the way it was where I lived in Tarrytown. Today, you never know it. I remember when the population of Tarrytown, North Tarrytown used to stay in the headline. It was Tarrytown, North Tarrytown newspaper, and then on the end it used to have a little thing that used to say population of 2,000. Well, today, 2,000.
Yeah.
They got more than that in Pennybridge now.
How far did you have to walk to school?
Uphill or downhill?
You tell me.
Dave always teases me about that. Well, our school wasn't that far away. It was only about a quarter of a mile away.
What time did the bus come pick you up in the morning?
Bus? When we went to high school, we had to go to Irvington. And we had to take a bus. And I did start to go to high school.
But it wasn't a school bus, it was a public
It
transportation.
was a public school. You paid a nickel. You got on the bus. And you paid a nickel to come back home on the bus. But that one was, it used to run from Austin to Irvington. I think it went further. I think they went to Dobbs Ferry. But there used to be change, you know. They didn't run, one bus didn't run all the way down. They used to change in North Tarrytown, then change again.
So you get on a different bus?
Yeah, you get on different. Well, we didn't, because we used to get on in Pennybridge, and Irvington's just down a little way.
Okay.
It was only about 6 miles, 7 miles down. So, but I didn't last long, because Dave's gonna laugh again. I used to have to walk the cow before I went to school.
You had to do what?
Walk the cow.
Walk the cow?
To the aqueduct. We had no grazing. We didn't have a big piece of property where we could graze her. So I used to walk the cow to the aqueduct, which was about a mile away, 2 miles away. No, not 2 miles. About a mile and a half away from the house. And I used to walk the cow down there and chain her and make sure she had water, and then I used to have to bring her home at night. That was one of my duties. Well, if the cow didn't want to walk, you had to walk slow. You couldn't make her go. So a lot of times I was late so many times. The teacher told me, next time you come in late, I'm going to send you to the principal's office. Now, the principal then days was not like they are today. Even in grade school, we had a principal, he'd grab you by the shoulders like that and bang up against the wall, and you know you went to see the principal. But I didn't want to go see the principal, so I was 16 years old. I didn't go to school no more after that. I was going to be late that day. So I didn't go, and after I didn't go after that. My mother didn't really care anyway, because the only ones that she wanted to really go to high school was my brother Johnny, the one that's out in Buffalo. He was real smart, and she always said he was going to be a doctor, which he never made it. He was the one that wanted to be going to RAF. Mm-hmm. But he was a smart guy. He got the highest marks when he graduated out of high school.
Wow.
He was supposed to be what they call
valedictorian?
Yeah. And then some girl was a half a mark below him, and he stepped aside and told her to be. He didn't want to be. But that was my brother Johnny. He was always that way.
Very gracious.
Yeah, I introduced him to a nice girl, and his buddy says he didn't want to go with her one night, so his buddy asked him, "Do you mind if I take Margie out?" And he said, "Oh, go ahead, take her out." Well, he wound up marrying her. But things always work out.
So you're a young man, you've quit school, you've left school, because you didn't want the principal to throw you against the wall because the cow
That's
wasn't
right.
eating the grass, didn't want to take the walk to eat the grass, made you late too many mornings. And how do you end up in the service? Did you get drafted or did you join?
Well, I went to work, like I say, I did two places. Then I went to the Fort Sikorsky. And the first, when they called me, the first 6 months, I didn't go in. I got a deferment because I was military. You know, it was for the Navy. I was working. It was supposed to be an essential job. So I got a deferment the first 6 months, and then I was called again, and well, they wanted me to get a deferment again, but
Now you mean the manufacturing company?
yes, the company, they wanted me to stay. Well, they're the ones that can keep you or not. You know, they can either say you can go. If the government calls you and they say, well, we don't need them, take them, they'll take you. But if they say they need you, well, then you don't go, unless you want to quit and go. Well, that's what I did. I told them, I said, I'm going into service this time. So I went into service.
Was that something you really wanted to do, or did you felt a really
Well,
heart to do it because of what was going on?
Well, I felt I want. Well, most of my friends were going into service, and my brother, one of my brothers was in the service then. And I don't know. I just wanted to go into service. I used to think it was great to be in the service. It still is, I guess, but I should have stayed in the service. I would have been better off. But money-wise, I'm talking.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you joined so you're drafted
Yeah, I was drafted
into the Army.
into the Army. And then from the Army, when I got drafted, I went down to Fort Dix, and from Fort Dix I went to Atlantic City.
So you did your basic training
In Atlantic City.
in Fort Dix?
Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, I never heard of a base in Atlantic City.
Yeah, they had all them hotels down there full of soldiers.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And we used to walk the boardwalk. That's where we used to do our walking, marching.
Okay.
And
That was usually basic training was 13 weeks. It was pretty extensive. Not like today. It's only 8 weeks. So you had.
I don't think I was there 18 weeks because they were asking for mechanics. Well, for this job I was telling you about, I went to the school. They were looking for airplane mechanics and armament mechanics. So they they didn't draft me. They drafted me, I could say. I didn't refuse to go, but they said, well, how would you like to go to school for this and this and this? Oh, okay, with me, I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to that school.
And that school, once again, was.
This is a card that I sent to my brother. My brother Ben. This is where I got when I got out of school. See, I put the stripes here.
Harlingen Army Gunnery School. Did they tell you it was gunnery school?
Oh, well, yeah, they said it was gunnery school. But I volunteered. Well, actually, I didn't. When they sent me here, they didn't send me to gunnery school. They sent me to. My nose is running again. They sent me to.
On this card, it's got underlined or circled. I guess it's a glory factor.
That really wasn't gunnery. That was armament and gunnery.
This says here, and you got it circled, they received their silver aircrew wings on graduation. Was that one of those things that really was attractive?
Yeah.
Wings.
The wings.
That glory stuff.
And the stripes.
And the
And
stripes.
the money was good.
Yeah.
We were getting we were getting $98 a month for a staff sergeant. And then, of course, we got more. When you went overseas, you got 20% of that, and then they got 50% for flying. So
And
wound up
combat
to
pay.
somewhere,
Yeah.
we were getting about 140 some odd dollars a month.
So they sent you to see. You didn't mention gunnery school until we saw the postcard. I was just wondering if they were just.
What does this say?
It's your honorable discharge and your Air Force technical school.
That's the school. That's the school that I went to for armament. Here in this school, I was learning to do synchronized machine guns to shoot through the propeller.
So you weren't going to be actually a gunner. You were just going to. You were a mechanic.
There, yes.
Yeah, love that.
And then they wanted. Then they called for. Well, there were so many of the gunners getting shot down in planes that they were calling for volunteers.
Yeah,
So I volunteered for that.
you volunteered. Didn't they tell you not to volunteer for anything?
Well, I was looking for glory.
You wanted the wings.
I wanted the wings.
Do you have
right?
trouble passing by the chicken places and the Colonel? They have wings. I have to stop in.
No, well, to be honest with you, there was three of us. We were buddies, and we all went through this school. And all three of us signed up, but the other two guys didn't pass. The one had a heart murmur or something, and the other one, I don't know why he didn't pass. But neither one of them got in. I was the only one that got in.
Well, they're telling you that all these gunnery guys are getting shot out of the planes and blown up. I'd have had a heart murmur too when they told me that.
Well,
Oh, shoot.
you wanted to go do something for your country.
Yes, you did.
Why are you in the Army?
Well,
You could get called any day.
yes, I could.
So?
Yes, I could. It's that same thing, I guess. Just I want the medal.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Especially when you're young and foolish like me.
Well, I'm not that young.
I mean, I was, what 20, at 21, at 41 I was 20, at 42 I was 21. 22 years old, I was a young boy and
Yeah.
looking for glory.
You were looking for glory. That's great.
Find her?
I don't know whether it was glory or Gloria.
Gloria.
Anyway, I volunteered, and then I went down to Harlingen, Texas. This is Harlingen, Texas, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's from Harlingen. Okay, that's not this school, and I went down to Harlingen, and then I got out of there, and I didn't get a diploma for that. I guess. Well, I guess they figured I wouldn't need one because I wouldn't live long enough. Anyway, then I went to Laurie Field, and then we went to California, and we did our target practicing over the Pacific. They had one of these AT-6s pulling a target, and we used to shoot at the target.
On the ground.
No, in the air.
You were in the air, or you were in the air shooting, or
In the air shooting.
okay.
You had a target was going this way, and you were going this way.
Right. What type of aircraft were you flying in?
24s.
You were in the 24s.
Yeah, we were in the 24s already.
Were you assigned the units already?
We already had our own plane, and we had our own
That's-
crew.
Okay.
We were all same guys that I trained with went overseas with me.
So the group that you were in school with, the gunnery group, after you graduated, then you all got lumped together and you were just there. You were just
That's it. Before they were a group, we all went as one group, but we didn't all go together.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there may be a couple of planes flew by themselves over, but we got in Africa, and that's where they formed the group. From Africa, then we went to
Hardwick.
no, it was that wasn't Harwick. That was
Bungri, was it?
Bainbridge Bridge, I think, or Bainbridge Bridge, something like that they call it. Anyway. And then that's where they formed the 446.
Okay.
Out of the new planes that were coming in. And there we did our 7 missions from there. Then we went to Harwick to the 93rd. But I have on that paper there, it tells you every place where I went
Right.
going down. We stopped in different spots going. We stopped, well, from Florida we flew to Puerto Rico. From Puerto Rico we went to British Guiana. From British Guiana we went to Berlin. No, we went to, not Berlin, South America somewhere in Brazil. And then we went to Berlin. I think that was the capital, isn't it? I think that's the capital of, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, from there, then we flew to Africa, to Dakar.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went up to Medina, which was just outside of Casablanca. And then from there we went to, I think we went to Bangor Bridge then, to the, that's where we joined the full 46. And then, of course,
From there to the 93rd.
93rd after.
After they took the 4 clown officers and put them with the 6 clown enlisted. To join the circus. Were you a good shot? Do you consider yourself a good shot?
Well, where I could keep score I was. We used to also practice riding around. We'd go in a truck, in the back of a truck, and they would shoot skeet helmets. You know what the skeet is.
Sure.
And you go around that, and they didn't tell you when it was coming out. You stood there, you had to keep your gun down, and when that bird come out, you were supposed to shoot it.
What are you shooting now? You're not shooting a 50 cal.
No, you shot a shotgun.
A shotgun.
Shotgun. You're using a 12 gauge shotgun.
And that was more so for reflex, just
Yeah.
to see if you could be on the beat.
So, well, also it's for tracking. The bird's going this way, you're going this way, so you got a lot of tracking.
Right. So your mind's got to calculate the distance and where to shoot, so you intersect and properly.
Well, I used to get 99 out of 100.
So you were a good shot.
I was a good shot. I think on my discharge it says I got qualified for something or another, either on a pistol or, I don't know, for a long time ago.
Now, you guys had tracers, tracer rounds, where it would every 7th round would light up so you could see where you're shooting.
Well, we used to use tracers, yeah. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
That would
used
tell
to.
you where your target, where you're shooting at.
Every 5th bullet was a tracer.
Every 5th bullet was a
Yeah.
tracer. So you actually shooting that fast, you would draw a line to see exactly
Right.
where your bullets are going.
You can pretty much tell if they were, you know, the way they were carried by the wind and all. It's
What they never tell you about tracer rounds is you can always detect where the bullet's going to hit the target, but they never tell you that the enemy can follow the tracer round back to know
Yeah,
exactly
that's-
where you are.
yeah, they could see with a tracer. That's true.
That was something like the 2nd or 3rd rule of combat. When the enemy's in range, so are you.
No. Yeah, they used to, a lot of times we weren't in the range. We were in their range, but they weren't in our range. You take them planes, ME-109 or the 109,
Messerschmitts.
they used to sit out there and lob rockets at us. And they would stay away from us. They wouldn't come in close enough to get hit with a machine gun.
So they were out of range, but you guys were in range.
We were in their range.
Yeah.
And they used to knock some of the planes down with just the rockets. I mean, it wasn't that easy to knock us out because they were quite a ways off. But they can line a plane up as a, you know, their sight. They just line a plane up at you, and if they're shooting in, say, 30 planes, they're bound to hit one of them sooner or later. But fortunately, they didn't carry that many rockets. I think they used to carry 2 rockets, one on each wing.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it, because they couldn't carry too much, because they had to have a plane free so they can dogfight also. But we very seldom had any escort. That's another thing. The escort never stayed with us because they didn't have planes to escort us.
Now, escorts, I understand the military term. is where a BG, which is a bomb group, would fly into an area, and the fighters would be escorting you to take away the German fighters,
Right.
and allow you to go on to the unit. Now your escort would leave once you got close to the target, when flak started coming up.
They would never come into the flak, but neither would the German fighters.
Right.
That's when they used to sit out in the side and shooting rockets. But we never had an escort that was any good. I'll show you what we had for an escort. Here's what we had for an escort. This is our plane. That's our right wing.
Now, what type of, that's not a Mustang.
Far from it. But the Mustang going up there, that's a 47.
Okay.
P-47.
P-47.
Yeah. And them things were, well, you can see how slow he is. He's not going much faster than we are.
No, well, the only reason he's keeping up with you is in your draft.
That's why we had very poor escort. Half of the time they didn't meet us anyway. And we used to go in, and then they were supposed to meet us when we got into the enemy territory.
Right.
And half of the time they were nowhere around. We never saw them. So we used to go in without escort, and we didn't have flak suits like the later on group had.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we had for an escort.
Yeah.
And they were actually useless against the German planes. You know, this thing could not handle an ME-109. They could fly circles around them things.
That's the Messerschmitt 109. Yeah.
And we didn't have a good plane until we got the P-38 wasn't bad. But the P-51 was the plane that saved a lot of planes.
That was the Mustang.
And they had a colored outfit in Africa. I think the Tuskegee Airmen. Did you ever hear them?
Yeah, matter of fact, I've gone to a couple of dinners, and I've got an autograph of a couple of them, and they presented me with a let's see, a 51, a model of a 51. You hear some wonderful stories from those guys.
That was a crack outfit they had. They have never supposed to have lost a bomber yet when they went out to a fighter.
That's true. It's a
that was what they said anyway.
Phenomenal record.
Easy going. One other picture I wanted to show you. I don't know where it is. Well, it don't make no difference.
There's a saying, and you've been in those spots where it seems like the whole world is ending around you with the flak and the fighters coming at you. There's a saying that there are no atheists in foxholes. Is that true?
I don't know. I never met one. I told a friend of mine down in Florida one time, his brother got killed in the war. And he said, how the hell did you get back from the army? I said, well, I prayed a lot. He says, what do you think, the other guys didn't pray? Well, that's a fact. I mean, you know. Yeah. I said, well, maybe I prayed harder, who knows? But I never met an atheist up there.
Yeah.
So, or on the ground that was fighting.
I'm glad you could tell that to your family. I'm not much of a churchgoer for my own reasons, but I have my own religion where I do believe in the God. And they learned the religion, but I never told them what church to go to. They could pick their own. As a matter of fact, Dave was baptized and he made his first communion, and I think he made his confirmation too. Now, Mark didn't. Mark was baptized, and the priest ticked me off so bad that I didn't care whether he made it or not after that. I think that's nonsense. The godfather to be with Mark
I was talking to the priest, and the priest says, well, who's this? Meaning me, I was there, you know, but I have to stand off to the side. And he said, that's the child's father. Oh, well, we don't see him in our parish, he says. And then he says, he come over to me and he asked me, he says, and I said, well, I don't want to go into it now, I says, but I don't go to church. So anyway, after the thing was all over, he called me in the back room and he asked me, he says, why don't you go to church? And I told him, I said, because I was a divorced man and I was excommunicated from the church, and I have no desire to go to a church that can't stand, that wants me to be married to somebody be miserable. I said, I don't think that's fair. Oh, he said, well, he said, that's church rules. He says, but, he says, taps around his shoulder, he said, but, he said, you can hope that she dies and then you can come back and join the church. Come on. This is the priest. That really put me off. After that, I didn't. You go to any church you want. They're all the same. When Dave was in the Webelos, he went to the Jewish church, he went to the Catholic church, he went to the Protestant church. You remember that? Yeah. Whatever. I had kids from all different. So we went to the church that they were from. They would go to Catholic with the Catholics, and Protestants would go Protestant, and we all go together as a group. And I don't think that was bad. Of course, if my mother ever knew that I was going to a Protestant church or something, there would be war. But that was another thing. My mother, she used to give, in the old days, they used to come around blessing the house. You probably don't remember that, but maybe your parents had it done.
Could have been, sure.
The priest used to come around and bless the house. Well, my mother always...
Which is a good thing. I mean, it is.
My mother always used to give them $3 because, and that was a lot of money back then. I was only a kid then. And
I got to bless this house. A couple of bucks.
There was 2 priests used to come around.
Could she have been in cahoots with the guy with the bottle and the $20?
I didn't hear that one. What was on the bottle of the $20?
You remember we talked about that guy, the building inspector.
Oh.
The priest and the building inspector had their own racket going.
No, it could be. Anyway, let me finish. That Carmelite church, you know, did you ever hear of the Carmelite church?
No, I don't believe so.
You're a Catholic, aren't you?
No.
No?
Nobody's perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. No, you're Italian?
Half Italian.
Oh, Dave's half Italian too.
See, that's all right.
Most Italians are Catholics. I mean,
well, my family.
And I mean, they were boom, boom, boom. They shot one another, and they gave each one a big funeral and all back in the old days.
Yeah.
But
in the old days, my family was Catholic, and the priest ticked off my grandfather, and he yanked the whole family out of the Catholic Church, and they went to an evangelical church on Broome Street in Manhattan, and that's how we became the Protestant side of the house.
Well, this was again a priest did this. My mother always gave $3 to the priest, and that was a lot of money. But then Father Hooley took over the Catholic Church down in Pennybridge, near Pennybridge, yeah. Carmelite Church they used to call it. He wanted to build a new church. So he come around, when they come around to bless the house again, they wanted the money first. So my mother gave him $3. He said, no, it's $10. Well, my mother says, I always give $3. I don't have $10 here. Well, we can't bless your house. And I was a kid then. I was watching this little... Well, I thought this was awful. Oh, my God. I said, poor old woman. So anyway, I went to Dave's church, where you go. Now I figured this is not a bad church. I like the way they acted, especially when Dave was moving. They gave him stuff, you know, and everybody seemed to be together. Well, Dave knows why I won't go to that church anymore. That minister you got down there.
Uh-huh.
Were you in that church the day he said If you don't give 10% of your salary to the church, you're stealing from the church.
Uh-oh.
He remembers it. He said he didn't mean that. He said, even if you're on relief, you should give 10% of your salary. Well, that's baloney, because the guy that's on relief can't afford to give what a guy's making $400 or $500 a week. He can afford to give a lot more than some guy's trying to live on $200 a week. And this I don't believe in. And when he said that, now maybe he meant it, maybe he didn't. But to me, that wasn't right. And if they feel that way about it, I'm not going to give 10% of my salary to them because I don't make that much.
Right.
And if I did, I wouldn't have anything to live on.
There's a place in the scriptures where it talks about a tithe and a 10%. We're not going to go into the biblical background all that much, but the bottom line is God knows the heart. And if you are financially in a position where you can support and aid the churches and what they do for ministries outside, I think that's what God's talking about. If you're a guy on welfare, God knows what you can give, and if you can give 10%, fine. If not, I don't think God says, you know what, I was going to let you in today, but you're up here, but you know, we got a couple of nickels and dimes we got to talk about. I don't think God works that way.
Even in the Catholic Church in North Tarrytown, I forget what church it was. I walked in there one time, I was going to church, and I'm walking in, and I put my finger in the holy water and blessed myself, and I'm walking in. And the guy at the door grabbed me by the shoulder. He said, hey. I said, what's the matter? He points at, I said, what's that for? He says, just 35 cents for the seat, he says. What the hell is 35 cents for the seat? Well, what am I going to, am I going to a movie? Excuse me, I got to blow my nose again.
Yeah, there's places that the tithe is because people have been injured by finances. And I know that our God is so merciful, he knows that.
But I don't really want to get on religion because
we're not going to go.
That's what I fought for. So everybody can have their own religion,
right.
Do what they want, except some of these outrageous things that they do. But I feel we should all be free to do as we please. And I believe that right from the start of it. Ever since I can remember, I believe that.
Winding down now, we're in Baghdad, and we're there. Are we forcing democracy on those folks, or are we giving them an opportunity to have a better way of life, or do they just want to be left alone?
Or do we just want their oil?
Or do we just want their oil? We can go there. What's your feelings on that?
I don't know.
A little bit of everything, perhaps?
I don't know whether it was bad or good. The way they show off the poor people there that were getting killed and everything else for no reason at all.
By the 10,000s.
Yeah, I feel it was, we should go in and do something about it, because that's what happened during World War II.
Well, yeah,
they were killing the Jews off, and the people in the United States were saying, we don't want to go to war, we don't want to go to war, let them fight their own war over there.
And then there was the other part of it is nobody treats people like that. They can't be killing thousands of people. That's just lies.
I believe that they can, because they did it to the Jews. And that's no lie. And they knew that they were killing them off like flies. And we didn't do anything about it until it was late.
Way late.
Way late.
6 million people.
We were giving everything away, and we were building nothing for ourselves. We were supplying Russia with planes. The British were getting planes from us. Now the Russians, we had no business giving them anything, because they were going to be against us right from the start. And we were going to help China. We were helping China too. Before the war, we got into
China was an ally.
And what did they all do after? They all turned against us.
Well, George Patton said we ought to just go in and just take Russia too, because those people are going to give us a hard time later on.
And I believe he was right.
Well,
now, Patton wasn't too well liked, but I think he was right on that one. If we would have took him right then and there, a lot of people believe it was Roosevelt's fault, because Roosevelt split Berlin the way he did. He promised them that.
Yes, there was. He called Roosevelt called Joe Stalin Uncle Joe, and they all talked, and that was a bad thing.
I think it was a bad thing too, because I think the Russians should have held their own over there and let the Germans freeze themselves to death over there. Because they weren't having a good time. I spoke to a lot of Germans, you know, that were in a war, and they said the Russians, there was no place for them to go. The Russians were eating the Germans up there. So the Germans say, and the Russians say that the Germans were eating the Russians.
Yeah, pretty ruthless on both sides.
But he showed me, this guy, Fritz Muller. You remember Fritz Muller?
I remember you mentioning him. I don't remember.
He was showing me pictures of people that are cannibalized in Russia, where the Russians were eating the German people. You know, the meat was peeled off just the bone. And he said this is what they were doing. But I believe the Germans were doing it too,
Very well,
because
maybe.
they had no food.
Right. Yeah.
And as far as the Italians, in Africa we had, I don't know how many hundreds of Italians, prisoners, and they were behind a fence. The fence was no higher than that. It was a wooden picket fence that they could have jumped over. And there's none of them escaped. None of them tried to escape. Why should they? They were getting everything from
Yeah.
the only thing they had to do was a little work. Some of them were working in the cafeteria. They were handing out the food, and some of them maybe sweep the grounds a little bit. But they were getting shoes, clothing, food, and everything else,
Sure.
where they didn't get that, and they were happy to be prisoners.
I was getting a little nervous. You were going to talk about the cannibalization of the Germans, and then the cannibalization of the Russians, and then we talked about the Italians. I thought we were going to have linguini out of it.
No, the Italians were a little different. I don't think the Italians were, like they used to say, Italians are lovers, not fighters.
Ah, molto bene, grazie, grazie, grazie.
That's what they used to say.
Yeah.
The Italians, don't worry about Italians, they're lovers, they're not fighters. I had a friend of mine that was in the Italian Navy that I met in Florida. And him and I became very good friends, besides, you know. And he was telling me about Mussolini send out, they had 2 ships left. One had no bullets and one had a few, a few bullets left. And Mussolini told him to go out after this convoy. I mean,
Bring a lot of rocks.
it was really funny the way he said it. You know, the way he told the story. And he says they get out there now. They're going out after this convoy. One ship got bullets on it, the other one don't have any bullets at all. And he says they're going out after the convoy. He says they're looking for, and all of a sudden they spot this here. He says there's about 35 ships. He says they were supposed to attack these ships, and he says that they start shooting at them, and he says I got under one of the lifeboats. He said we didn't even try to fight them.
No, hey, we saw him. Okay, now we go back.
Ramming speed.
Ramming speed. Where's your mines? I don't know. He said they were here. Put him in the water.
But he really was serious. You know, he said that they were sent out to fight the American convoy, and he said they had nothing to fight it with. So he said he almost got killed. They were shooting at him, and they turned around and run tail.
What did they do to Mussolini? They tried him real quick and they hung him, didn't they? Finito.
Yeah, they claimed they hung him. Or they showed him hanging, and his girlfriend too. But you know, you don't really know. It's the same as
The same as Hitler and
Hitler. You don't know whether they're dead or not.
So what can you leave your grandchildren and your family? What would you say about your life, and what would you want them to achieve in their life? You've made a difference. All of you guys who went up in them planes, all of you guys who were in World War II and in the front and even behind the lines, because at any time you could have gotten called. You've made a difference. Your family is your legacy.
Well, I think all in all we made a difference, because I think if we weren't there, we'd all be speaking German today.
Yeah. What would you want to tell them?
What would I want?
What would you want to tell them for their future? To talk about the freedoms and to to fight for
Well,
what
I
you believe,
think-
the things that you've
But I
done.
think my kids understand freedom. I don't have to talk to them about it. I really don't even think about that. I think Dave and Mark did very well for themselves, and Dave and Mark both believe in freedom, and they both have the flag flying. That's what I like to see, the flag flying. Mark has a flag flying. Dave has a flag flying most of the time when it's nice. And I think that they really understand what freedom is. I don't have to preach to them about freedom. And as far as their grandchildren, my grandchildren go, their children, like Joel said, he wants to be president. I think this is a great ambition. I hope he makes it. I mean, there's no reason why he can't. I don't know what Seth wants to be. He seems to want to be a musician, which is fine too. Mark's kids are a little too young to decide what they want to be, but they're both very smart kids. Same with Dave's kids, they're very smart. I think they're very bright. And I don't think I need anything more than that. I think the goal is accomplished as far as I'm concerned.
So you would say that Dave and Mark are established enough where it would be something where you could say, just listen to your parents, tell your grandkids to listen to your parents, and you'll be okay. And that's what I mean by telling them something, leaving them.
Well, I don't know. I don't really know how to take that. I mean, I taught my kids to be on their own. When they ask me something, I tell them, try and figure it out, you know. Well, what would you do, or something like that. And they always figured it out themselves. And this is what I think was good about it. Like Marcus is just as good as far as it goes with building stuff than I was. As a matter of fact, he's a professional. He does good plumbing, he does the good electrical work, he does good carpenter work, and yet he's a policeman. Now, I think this is great.
He
I
serves.
mean, he can do all these things. Now, Dave is very good in his field too. Dave knows electronics well enough that he can do almost anything with a computer. He knows, well, he knows a little about television. But he had all that equipment here. I think that was great the way they used to do stuff with that equipment he used to have here. So I think he achieved his goal, what he wanted to be. He became a teacher, and he's a good teacher. And his wife is a good teacher. Not because she's a principal, but she's a good teacher.
Maybe if she was the principal when you were a kid, you'd have still been going to school.
Hey, believe it or not, the camera's on. Believe it or not, we had a beautiful teacher in the 5th grade. And this guy was, a couple of the guys that I was telling you about quit when I was 16 years old. I was in the 5th grade, and this guy was in the 6th grade. It was all big guys in the 6th grade then. Well, the kids were bigger anyway. And we used to have a high ceiling in an auditorium. And that's where they used to have the 5th and 6th grade. They used to move the seats and then put the wooden seats out for the auditorium. Then when assembly was over, then they push it back, which we had once a week. Well, anyway, these guys were throwing spitballs at the ceiling. So the teacher got in, and she was really a nice, good-looking girl, and young. She just got out of high school or college, whatever, herself. And she told them, now you just go on down and get the ladder and go up there and take them down. So they went down and got this big ladder and they put it up there. And she told them, all right, go on, get them down. Oh, I'm afraid to go up on the ladder. And they kept, she said, I'll show you how to do it. So she got going up the ladder and all the guys all get under them.
They were holding the ladder.
They were holding the ladder.
So it wouldn't fall.
And she caught wise, and boy, she comes out of that ladder with a red face. But that was, you know, we used to do things too, but not nothing
They were
serious.
pranks. They were all in fun pranks.
It was more or less silly things. Like we used to have bottle fights. You know how to have a bottle fight?
We never did.
Well, there used to be dumps them days, a lot of dumps around, because they didn't have garbage collection like they do today. And we used to go over to the dump, which was right across from the road from the school, maybe 10 feet, no, say 30 feet in from the road. There used to be a dump in there. There used to be a lot of bottles in there. So we'd take the bottle by the neck, and another guy would get a bottle, and we'd have a bottle fight. Whoever broke the bottle first wins. Well, sometimes the glass was flying all over the place, and you get all cut up and everything else. So we weren't supposed to do that. But that was one of the things we used to get in trouble with all the time, having bottle fights. But, let's get back on the war. I don't want to tell Dave what a bad boy I was.
You got 5 minutes left on your third hour. I think it's about time to wrap it up.
All right, wrap it up.
Jay's got to get home, or he's going to be a divorced man.
Well, the reason why I was asking you just to just leave something with your grandkids, and both sons have done well. And I guess I was asking from your heart just to look into the camera and tell them that freedom isn't free, and that they're going to come up against things in their life that are going to be more important than life itself, worth fighting for. And if that's the case, that's what they need to do to preserve a freedom that's been God-given to us.
Well, I'm sure that they have that well pounded into their head.
But by you, I was just saying, by you sharing that, because you're a witness of one who lived those things. It's one thing for Dave or someone who hasn't to talk about freedom, which is it's okay and it's powerful, but for someone who's been in the midst of the battle with the flak and the Messerschmitts coming down at you, not having time to collect your thoughts, but just to survive, and then get back in that airplane because it's freedom and it's God-given and it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, but you don't feel that way because I wasn't the only one. There was thousands of guys that were doing it, and I mean, how could you one better than the other? I mean, we were all the same as far as I'm concerned. Well, that's one of the things that people stuck together more than I think during World War II than they did in any of these other wars that we had, the Korean War, the Vietnam, or Desert Storm, or any of them. I think that was supposed to be the war to end all wars, and it didn't. Let's face it.
I was going to say which one?
That's
World
it.
War I, World War II.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But I think my kids are orientated and not they're. I think they're good citizens, both of them, and their children are going to be good citizens too, as far as I'm concerned. From what I see, Dave's kids are as bright as could be, and they both have good notions, and Mark's kids are very bright too, and I'm sure that they'll grow up to have good ideas too. So that's about the only feeling I got towards it.
Well, it's divine providence that you sit on this couch today and you see your son and you're able to talk about your grandchildren. With all praying harder at times that got you to this point, very well may have been believing that God's got a plan for every individual, and not on the amount of money that one gives, but because from you came this beautiful family. And it's thousands of men, as you said before, like you, that has brought us to where we are today, to a good, free land. And I know I thank you very much for that.
Well, I think they would have turned out all right without me.
They wouldn't have been here without you. I don't know how they'd have turned out. They wouldn't have been here. You could say, well, they would have been different, but I don't think they'd buy that.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, whatever I contribute,
You've done well.
I tried.
You've done well. And you made a difference. You made a
Like,
difference.
like
for
I
you.
say, they made it their own way a lot too. So.
But what you have to hear is, they're making a difference because you made a difference. They're making a difference with the lives of children in school. Mark is making a difference as being a police officer. I know he's giving people a fair shake, giving them something to follow. Gee, I'd like to be like him. I'd like to be like her. Good for you.
Well, I hope it makes a big difference anyway.
I think you have.
I accomplished what I'm living for. Let's put it that way. Dave's looking at the last one. How much time, Dave?
About 30 seconds. You better.
Oh.
Say goodbye. Say
Goodbye.
sorry.